on the clock. They had high hopes this season. They're reportedly being asked about Guerrero, Bichette, etc. We've seen other organizations realize it's not going to happen now. We may have to move a couple of guys. You mentioned Crochet with the White Sox. Where would the Blue Jays be given what's happened this season and the impact it has on tonight's decision, if at all?
There's three ways of looking at it. One is to ignore it and just take the guy you like the best. The second would be we're going into a rebuild. Let's take a high school guy. It's going to take a while because that's going to match up with when we're going to be good again. Or it could be we need to figure out a way to be good next year. Let's take a college guy that's going to move quickly. I have heard all three of those kinds of guys being considered at this pick, and it is very contingent on who gets here. So now we don't know who the pick's going to be, but we've seen a couple teams pivot on what we thought they were going to do because the guys they like didn't get there. It's very interesting to see how they handle this. In the same way Kansas City, were they going to do a different thing because of how good the team is this year?
All right, look towards the stage. Here comes the commissioner again with the Blue Jays pick.
With the 20th pick of the 2024 MLB draft, the Toronto Blue Jays select Trey Yesavage, a right-handed pitcher from East Carolina University. The Minnesota Twins have the next pick.
So if we had four big pitchers, I mean, Yesavage was one of the four.
Yes, Burns and Smith were consensus 1 and 2. Yesavage, I think, finished a little bit question marks because of the lung issue. That last start, the velo was down a little bit, so people had Sanger moving over, which is what happened. And so now I think Yesavage, this is now even further than people thought he would fall. I think this is a coup for Toronto. Yeah. The theory is that you're going to get at least a Michael Wacha, an above-average four starter that can do some stuff for you. Can they tease out a little bit more? That's the question.
I mean, from a draft-eligible, the collegiate guys, he was either 3 or 4 this year, depending on who you talk to. So if you're Toronto getting him at 20, you feel pretty good. For Yesavage, it's a fastball into the low 90s. He didn't have a start his freshman year, and then primarily all-stars the next 2. Look at release point, and I think this is really important. Hagen Smith is about 5 feet 5 inches. Yesavage is like 6'8", 6'9". It's a massive difference, the angle, that everything's coming to home plate. The splitter got added a few years ago. Austin Knight's the pitching coach at East Carolina. And because of this arm angle, went to Yesavage and said, they're going to do this when you get into pro ball. Why don't we do it now? Let's get out in front of it. The slider definitely plays. The fastball plays. But the splitter is kind of the separator for me. It gives him 3 real pitches. And I think from that high arm slot, the reality is there's not as many of those guys anymore. Yeah. I mean, Moore is the lower 3/4. They're going to drop down a little bit. Trey Yesavage gives you a little bit different look and a very good collegiate track record the last 2 years.
It reminds me of Dan Herron. That high release, straight downhill, and the split pairs perfectly with that release point. Yeah, Callie said it, like, we need to get better next year. This is a guy that is going to be a quick mover. He's as polished as any of them. It just might not be as loud and as high as ceiling, but he got a chance to be in a big league.
And the polish came quick because he was playing football until he was about 14. Then he went to a baseball camp and he started throwing darts, and he decided baseball just was a good idea.
Yeah, I think he made the right decision. When you think about his background, too, he's from another small town, Warriortown, Pennsylvania, population 4,000. Spent a lot of time on his grandma's farm, 100 acres, four-wheeling. It's where he learned baseball, old bat, tennis ball. Let's get to know a little bit more about Trey Yesavage.
On the mound, they've got their ace, Trey Yesavage, taking the hill. This stuff is outstanding. Strikeouts, if you want it, you're going to get them.
Describe to me, like, why baseball kind of stood out the most to you.
I actually grew up liking football the most, but I know I had the best potential, or the greatest potential in baseball. And after my freshman year of high school, I told my mom I wanted to potentially play college baseball, and took me to a little showcase. First time I was ever on a radar gun, and it all took off from there.
If you were to go back and talk to like the high school version of you, or like 9th grade, 10th grade, and be like, hey, like you got a chance to get your name called draft day, what would you have thought?
I wouldn't have believed you. I really wouldn't. Like, I never thought I'd be in this position, in this seat, but I'm very thankful that I'm here.
Can we talk a little bit about your splitter and just like how you learned it, like how much you honed that pitch and how that evolvement came about?
So I started throwing it 2 years ago, just something my pitching coach recommended, and started throwing it. The grip has changed 3 times, I believe, but this year I found the grip that was right for me, and it feels comfortable to throw, and I love throwing it in 2 straight counts and seeing guys swing and miss on it.
We talked about growth as a player, but probably your biggest growth mentally, everything that you've done over the last 3 years.
I would just say having the conviction and confidence to trust myself on the mound. And it's really paid dividends for me, knowing that I can go out there and be one of the best pitchers in the country.
Well, Trey told me you can kind of look at the evolution of his mentality through just his walk-up songs. He started his freshman year with some country, fun, shoot from the hip. It's one of his favorite songs. And then his walk-up song last year, Sad But True by Metallica. KP, I mean, he went from some fun, kind of enjoying himself, and he talked about how he was lethal just shooting down hitters.
Well, yeah, maybe it's time to go back to the country right now, too, given what our setting is right here. I think if we talk plenty about Yesavage as we were going through it. Berkey talked about it just a minute ago. Once you get past, I think, Smith and Burns, and you can argue about St. John, you can argue about Yesavage, but the reality is Yesavage is probably more polished right now than St. John is. Stuff may be a little bit different, but he's definitely more polished. He may have the ability to move through a system pretty well. And he has started at a very high level for 2 straight years. I think you got to be thrilled at this spot to get it.
Yeah, and also these kinds of guys in free agency, a 4th starter, if you're not excited about that, they make $15 million a year. That's saving some real money.
You need 4 starter.
Yeah. Everybody wants optionable starting pitching. That's what he's going to be in short order.
You can have a huge music collection too with that money if you want. Huge music collection.
Final